Hey guys, and welcome back to the ASX Investor channel, and welcome to another CEO interview. Today we'll be diving back into the world of graphite. We all know about the excitement surrounding many of the EV battery materials as the electric vehicle transition starts to pick up pace, but there are a few other narratives and themes playing out, including the localization of supply chains and the broader macroeconomic picture. Today we'll be diving back into the story of Syrah Resources. ASX SYR is a fascinating company. They're hot off the heels of having an offtake deal with Tesla, but there's actually a new piece of news surrounding some funding and support coming in from the Department of Energy over in the United States after Joe Biden invoked the Defense Production Act. It is an exciting sector. We know there's a lot of excitement surrounding the graphite sector, and we're looking forward to discussing the story. Welcome back, Shaun Verner. Great to have you on the channel.
Thanks very much. Good to be here.
It's great to have you here. There's obviously a lot of news for us to unpack, but maybe for those who might not be as familiar, can you give us the overview? Who is Syrah Resources and how are you currently developing out your vertically integrated solution?
No problem. Thanks a lot. Well, Syrah Resources is the owner and operator of the world's largest natural graphite mining operation, the Balama operation in Mozambique, 350,000 tonnes per annum production capacity. The current global market's about 1 million tonnes, and about 400,000 of that currently going into anode material. So with about 65% of mined material coming from China, currently in 100% of anode material coming from Asia, it's been really important for us to develop an integrated downstream solution in the anode material side. And for the last 4 years, we've been working on the Vidalia Active Anode Material facility in Louisiana in the US. As you mentioned, we got an offtake contract with Tesla in December last year after starting production of anode material in 2021. So the US market, along with Europe, is looking for sources of supply outside Asia, and Syrah Resources provides the most advanced and largest of the ex-Asia options. And already being in production, it's a very exciting time for us as we head to the project development in the US.
Plenty going on. I think it'd be a great place for us to start with that US project. I think the last time we discussed a couple of months ago, we were just waiting on that final investment decision. Obviously, that's now come through. Can you give us an update in how Louisiana's playing out and everything else that's going on with the story over there?
Yeah, sure thing. So when we announced the Tesla offtake contract in December last year, which was for 8,000 tonnes a year out of a planned 11,000 tonnes capacity, we then worked through the final elements of the final investment decision, and that was taken in February this year. And at the same time, we undertook an equity capital raising of 250 million Australian dollars to fully fund the development of that 11,000 tonne facility. So that works all underway now. The construction contracts are being put together, long lead items have been ordered, and the construction process is commencing. So things are moving ahead really well. We continue to engage with other potential off-takers for the remaining volumes out of that facility, as well as the potential for expansion to 45,000 tonnes in the next phase of development. So a lot going on, and obviously yesterday we announced the conditional commitment from the DOE on the funding.
It's always a fascinating one. I think there's a lot of awareness at the moment about the increased demand from electric vehicles and obviously all of the input materials, but are you able to give a bit of an insight there into how some of the discussions are playing out with other off-takers? I know you mentioned 11K tonnes per annum. You're already considering that uplift to 40K. So obviously the demand's there, but how are those discussions playing out?
Yeah, it's a super interesting time because, as I said earlier, all of the current anode material production is coming from Asia, about 85% of that coming from China. So with a huge amount of development from the automakers and the battery manufacturers in the US and Europe, they really are looking 5 to 10 years down the track in securing that supply. And they are looking to establish local supply chain options and diversify their sourcing to mitigate risk. So this is not a China versus rest of the world situation. It's very much that the growth in the market overall is such that China needs to continue to grow production, as well as the development of these local supply options. So as we continue to talk to the battery manufacturers and automakers, they continue to test material, and there's very strong demand for not just the balance of the current project, but also volumes from an additional expansion. So things are really exciting on that front.
And then obviously all of that discussion surrounding the localization of supply chain leads us to the major announcement yesterday, getting that funding from the Department of Energy, over $100 million coming through conditionally. Obviously, it was the first discussion after Biden invoked the Defense Production Act. Can you give the viewers an insight into why that's been playing out, and then ultimately what that will help you unlock as well moving forward?
Sure. I think it's been widely reported already that graphite is defined as a critical mineral in the US. Some things that are not as well known is that it is the largest material by mass in a lithium-ion battery. So the US Geological Survey rank supply concerns on graphite actually higher than they do for lithium, nickel, cobalt, etc. So it's been for some time a focus from government side, as well as I mentioned, from potential customers. So the development of the facility in the US allowed us in mid-year last year to apply for funding under Department of Energy's Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Program. And that's a program that's been in place since about 2008, and it was primarily designed for auto manufacturers and emissions reduction and high efficiency vehicles. But the recent Infrastructure Act actually extended that program to supply chain components for EVs, and we applied under that program. And this is the first ever manufacturing facility to get conditional commitment under that program. So we're really proud of that. And some of the previous recipients have included Ford, Nissan, and Tesla. So really exciting, and it will allow us to advance our thinking on the next phase of expansion as well, because as I mentioned earlier, the equity raise fully funded the phase of expansion we have underway at this point in time. So now we'll apply the loan to that expansion, free up some of the equity capital for the next phase of review.
It's an exciting time, I guess, building on top of all of that as well. Obviously, the downstream is fantastic, but you're really sourcing that through the feedstock coming from Balama, one of the world's largest natural graphite operations. Can you give an insight into how the restart's gone? And I think the last time we spoke, it was all about that scale up and scale out.
Yeah, we actually have our Q1 quarterly update out next week. So I'll provide some more detail on the specifics of the first quarter then. But clearly, the end of last year was a challenging period for Chinese domestic production. We started to see significant demand increase outside of that supply challenge. And in the second half of last year, prices for natural graphite started to rise significantly, and demand was very strong. So that's really helped facilitate the restart. We had started in March last year. We had some constraints on logistics, of course. But the demand picture is very strong, and prices have continued to be supported. So it's an exciting time for Balama because the electric vehicle and battery-driven growth that we had expected for so long is really starting to drive back through the supply chain. So it's great to see.
And just wrapping all of that together, I know we have layered it throughout the discussion, but I'd be keen to hear, obviously you spend all day within the graphite sector, just what's your terms of the outlook? Where do you think things are heading, and what are you seeing internally as well at the moment?
Yeah, I think the outlook for natural graphite is extremely positive, and that's driven by EVs. Obviously last year we saw more than 100% growth in EVs to over 6 million vehicles sold. We expect that to increase by 4 to 5 times by 2030, and accordingly that will drive a huge growth, probably a tripling of the natural graphite market through that period. So the demand outlook is very, very strong. And internally, we're obviously preparing ourselves for the upstream demand as well as the downstream demand out of Vidalia, and continuing to interact with potential customers to secure those long-term agreements which underpin further expansion for Vidalia. So both the upstream and the downstream looking very positive, and the demand picture driving that very, very strongly.
It's fair to say it's been a transformative start to 2022. Love just to hand it over to you. Any final reflections that you had for shareholders or those who might be new to the story and looking at the Syrah Resources story now? Anything that you wanted to leave them with there, Shaun?
Yeah, obviously the last 3 years or so, there were some very challenging periods for the company, but the management team and the teams at our assets have been really focused on laying the foundations for long-term shareholder value growth. And what we've seen in the last 6 months is those steps starting to come to fruition, and the offtake contract, the FID for Vidalia, the conditional commitment for funding, all very, very important steps. And we're looking forward to continuing to deliver and adding that shareholder value.
Really appreciate your time. That's the Syrah Resources story. It's ASX SYR. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button. Feel free to share it out. We make a daily video each and every day, so make sure you've subscribed and turn your bell notifications on. Shaun Verner, it's always a pleasure catching up. Looking forward to seeing what's up ahead and catching up again soon.
Thanks very much. Appreciate the time.